In 1871, the first modern report of the Loch Ness Monster was made. Ever since, hundreds of thousands of people have flocked to Scotland in hopes of finding the beast and proving it was real. One theory, though, asks the question, what if you can't? What if the Loch Ness Monster is, in fact, a demon? Join us now as we look at a dark page in Cryptozoology with the Exorcism of Loch Ness and ask, what the fuck? Ever since 1933, the villages surrounding Loch Ness had become used to scientists, spiritualists, cryptozoologists, and monster hunters coming and going to their towns. So when the village of Drumnadrochit was visited by Frederick Ted Holliday and Reverend Dr. Donald Omond in 1973, they didn't really think much of it. Do you really need me to explain the Loch Ness Monster to you? Big dinosaur thing that probably lives in a lake in Scotland? Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. Ted Holliday was recently famous for coming up with a theory known as the Goblin Universe Theory. The theory basically states that what we know as cryptids, aliens, ghosts, and other such things are what people during ancient times knew as mythological creatures, monsters, dragons, and demons. If you believed in this, then fine. This is actually a credible theory within that community. If true, then this would actually explain where a lot of the ideas behind these mythological creatures versus what we're seeing today in cryptozoology, it makes perfect sense, right? Only one problem. During the 60s and 70s, every crackpot idea was being stretched out into a novel-length thesis paper and published and treated as if it was a scientific study. Holliday took this idea and inflated it out to include the idea that these creatures lived in a parallel universe that sometimes merged with ours. At these merge points, it would be easy to see inhabitants of this other universe, and sometimes they could cross over and cause some damage, and then cross back. See, that's the credible part. Being a good Catholic boy, Holliday took the idea that he was presenting and reversed it. One would think that given these ideas, that one could assume that these creatures in this other universe were just as caught off guard as we would be. That they were just as innocent as we would be and are merely victims of this inter-universal collision. That the medieval belief that these creatures are demons and monsters meant to torment humanity is very wrong. Not Holliday. He believed the exact opposite. He believed that these creatures were evil and laying in wait of one of these convergences to be able to pass over and cause devilry and corrupt humanity for reasons. The Reverend Dr. Donald Omond was a retired vicar of Chidiock in Dorset, England. He also claimed to be an exorcist. Only he didn't exorcise people. Reverend Omond exorcised places. Wait, would an exorcist actually refer to himself as an exorcist? No, they wouldn't. Also, according to Catholic dogma, places can be blessed, but they can't be exorcised. Also, according to Catholic dogma, only a current Catholic priest, can do a solemn rite of exorcism. I could go on and on about how everything that this guy is doing is flying in the face of Catholic dogma, but that would take forever. So I'm not trying to say that this guy is lying. But this guy is lying.
Omen claimed to have done rites of exorcism over the Bermuda Triangle, the fields of Kettleness, and claims to have met Adolf Hitler and wanted to do an exorcism of him. Omen also claims in his book,
You know what I've noticed? Anyone from the 60s and 70s who claims to be an exorcist has a book that they just happen to be selling. Kind of like how the Warrens and how Hans Holzer wrote multiple books a year detailing their exploits, and we all know how trustworthy Ed Warren was.
that when he arrived in Drumnadrocket, he noticed that the people had an incredible case of drinking alcohol way too much, drug use, marital issues, and foul temper.
Ignoring the fact that he is currently in Scotland, also ignoring the fact that Europeans have been slowly losing faith in the Catholic Church ever since the Black Plague, and straying from the straight-laced ideals of organized religion.
Reverend Omen and Ted Holliday met and decided that what was happening in Loch Ness was not a prehistoric creature, but a demon ghost dinosaur from the Goblin universe that was intent on causing the moral degradation of all of Scotland. An exorcism must be performed. On June 22nd, 1973, Reverend Omen, Ted Holliday, and Omen's many photographers set out in a borrowed boat to exorcise Loch Ness.
Of course there were photographers. How could there be an exorcism if you don't have photos to prove that it needed an exorcism?
The rite included stops at the four sides of Loch Ness, where each person climbed out of the boat, got to one knee, and Omen said a prayer as he flung holy water around. Once all four sides were completed, the little boat full of gullibility motored out to the very center of the loch. There, Omen stood up
Like an absolute idiot.
and performed the final rite. Then they motored back to shore and went about their day.
What, did you expect something to fight back? This isn't Moby Dick we're talking about here. This is a pseudo-scientist and a former priest boating about a lake while people take pictures of them. I'd be bored too.
Later that day, though, and keep in mind that this is taken from the words of Ted Holliday, when deciding to take a trip to where a UFO was last supposedly seen, he saw a swirling smoke cloud in the shape of a pyramid, shooting a light beam at his forehead. The next morning, he also saw a man dressed in all black leather, helmet and goggles, staring at him.
Holliday also said that this guy had no eyes, but if he was wearing motorcycling goggles, how could you tell?
So Holliday and Omen left the area with full confidence that they hadn't accomplished a damn thing. Not long after, the BBC found out and did an interview with Omen on the banks of Loch Ness. He agreed to reenact the exorcism, which showed the same results, except now the BBC was there to witness the absolute nothing that happened.
When the BBC asked him how he would know if it worked or not, he basically said, I got a guy. This guy's going to stick around for about a year and see if the people of Drumnadrocket are getting any better or if things just stay the same. If things get better, I'd say that my job here was a success. But if things don't get better, then I guess I failed, at which point I will publicly come out and say that I failed. Yeah, that was a horrible Donald Trump impression, but it's pertinent. And 1 year later, the people were still drinking, smoking, and whoring around because they're in Scotland. Omen never admitted to failing.
So there you have it, guys. The Exorcism of Loch Ness. two guys tried their best to pull off one of the biggest publicity stunts, but only wound up looking like complete idiots. Ted Holiday wrote more books that no one has read. Donald Oman seems to have disappeared off the face of the internet. So either he died in some paranormal incident, or the more likely result that nobody cares enough to look for. The people of Drumnadrocket, yet, are still laughing about this situation to this very day. Thanks for watching. If you're curious about learning more about exorcisms, then tune into Podcast 10 What the Fuck, where we'll be looking further into that. If you like what we're doing here, why not give us a subscription? That way you don't miss the next episode of History 10 What the Fuck. Until next time, goodbye everybody.